following the abrupt and disastrous Allied withdrawal from Afghanistan, with the Pentagon blaming British troops for the bomb attack on Kabul airport, and with President Joe Biden failing to answer Boris Johnson's calls in the run-up to withdrawal. What are the long-term implications for the so-called special relationship between Britain and America? With Joe Biden and his predecessor, Barack Obama, no fans of Brexit, can this relationship ever relive the glory days of the 1980s between Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher? To discuss this, I'm delighted to welcome Dr Jan Halper Hayes, former head of Republicans overseas, Professor Robert Singh, Professor of Politics at Birkbeck University of London, and Laurie Laird, a top US political commentator. Fantastic to have you all with us. If I could start with you, Professor Singh, is there such a thing as the special relationship?
I'm not sure that the special relationship as a term is very useful, but I think the idea that the UK has a specially close relationship with the US that's unlike most other countries has been true and probably still is true. So I don't think we should judge too hastily from the debacle, admittedly, that it's been over recent weeks as to where the long-term trajectory lies.
Yes, I mean, Joe Biden reportedly didn't engage with the Prime Minister in the early stages of the withdrawal, Professor Singh. We heard about unanswered phone calls from the White House coming out of London. But then again, Joe Biden didn't engage with NATO either. So should we take that behaviour personally?
Well, that's a terrific point, Mark. I don't think we necessarily should take it personally. We weren't the only allied partner of the US that was essentially trolled by the Biden administration. And let's put this into some sort of historical perspective. You know, our bilateral relations have ebbed and flowed over time. We've had troughs, we've had highs. It's often been dependent upon who happens to be in the White House and who happens to be in number 10 Downing Street. So I think that just projecting out from, admittedly, what a tragedy this has been, into something more long-term is difficult. Because if you went back, for example, to Suez in 1956, to when the US invaded Grenada in 1983 at the height of the Thatcher-Reagan rapprochement, people then were saying, oh, this is the end of the special relationship. It wasn't. The foundations of trust, the foundations of friendship have been so strong that we've eventually been able to get through this. And I hope we can do that again.
Laurie Laird, is the special relationship purely a British invention?
That's an excellent question, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say perhaps it is. I don't know that the relationship is all that special, and it's something we've come to rely on. It's something that we talk about because we have always talked about it. But I'm glad Professor Singh mentioned Grenada, and that the invasion of Grenada, which was part of the British Commonwealth, happened during the heyday of what we call the special relationship, when Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister, when Ronald Reagan was President, and we talked so much about the great relationship they had, yet America invaded Grenada and didn't tell the UK beforehand. So I'm not sure that there was ever a special relationship. Yes, it's special because we say it's special, but it's more a bit of a marriage of convenience.
Jan Halper Hayes, in recent political history, I suppose Thatcher-Reagan was the golden era if there was a special relationship.
Well, I think we could go back to Winston Churchill as well. Yeah. There's never really been a special relationship or affection until really Roosevelt and Churchill coined that phrase. And the reason that that special relationship came about was that we had the war, and it was actually Sir John Dill and General Marshall, the chief of staff for each, that had an incredible relationship that they brought Roosevelt and Churchill together. I think one of the different things is that even though Reagan invaded Grenada and Margaret Thatcher was not happy with it, it didn't destroy the relationship. And I think that what Biden has done is no different than going back to 1931 and 32 with the Manchurian crisis and the Depression and the naval rivalry and the U.S. not joining the League of Nations and the war debts. And there was never really a strong affection, but what was important was that we joined together to ensure that there was freedom around the world.
And what are your thoughts about Joe Biden and Boris Johnson, Dr. Halper Hayes? I mean, do you think that that relationship can be rebuilt?
No, sorry, absolutely not. But see, Joe Biden isn't interested in developing any relationships. We're not exactly sure what is going on with him in the current moment. But, you know, he didn't have the courtesy to even, I think it was 40 hours before he even returned Prime Minister Johnson's call. You know, that kind of treatment of another country's leader, I won't be very clean if I really say what it is, but it was bad.
Well, Jan, you won't be cancelled on this show, but it's interesting to bring politics into it, isn't it, Professor Singh? Because it's not necessarily the case that the special relationship is based on political equilibrium. For example, Tony Blair, a Labour Prime Minister, was very close to the Republican George W. Bush.
Absolutely, Mark. And it was Bill Clinton who told Blair to get close to Bush when he was leaving office. And I think your other guests have made some very good points here. The point I would make is that, yes, the relationship has ebbed and flowed. Look, we've always been the junior partner, and we've always cared about it far much more than Washington has. But at the same time, we're in a situation where, compare us to any other country in the world. Who else has the US embedded in our intelligence services and our people permanently embedded in America's? Who else has permanent officials embedded in the Pentagon of other countries? France can't claim it. Germany can't claim it. So we have an intelligence relationship, a diplomatic relationship, a political relationship on the UN Security Council and NATO that is real and meaningful. And it transcends a lot of these very, very difficult moments that we're in at the moment, and we will rebound. But having said that, there is no question in my mind that for reasons both on our side of the pond and on the American side of the pond, our relationship has been weakening for the last decade or more. And that trajectory is not probably about to change, unfortunately.
Laurie, Laird, to what extent is Brexit a factor? Because we know that former Democrat President Barack Obama advised the British people against voting to leave the European Union. He said if that happens, the UK will be at the back of the queue for a trade deal. Of course, Joe Biden is no fan of Brexit either, and a former vice president to Barack Obama. So is Brexit a problem for our relationship?
Brexit is a problem. And when we talk about a special relationship, there isn't as much of a special relationship between the UK and Britain as the UK and the US, forgive me, as there is between the US and Ireland. Joe Biden makes no secret of his links to Ireland, despite the fact that his ancestors immigrated to the US in the 1860s. He still feels a pull to Ireland, and he has been, if there's one thing in British politics he is watching, it's the implementation of the Northern Irish Protocol. He has told BBC reporters, hey, I'm Irish. But this does bring up another question that some of your other guests have touched upon. If the special relationship between the UK and the US is more in the eyes of the UK than it is in the US, yet the UK does have a military that can make a difference in the world, should the UK be looking towards somewhere else for a special relationship? Ben Wallace, the Defense Secretary, has certainly hinted that he would have liked British troops to have stayed in Afghanistan a little bit longer to make that transition a little bit easier. Yet he said that without the backing of the US, that NATO didn't feel secure being there. Should the UK military, should UK defense be looking for another partner so that under the auspices of NATO or under other auspices, it can act independently of the US?
Dr. Halper Hayes, do you think that Joe Biden is less keen to grant the UK a trade deal, less keen, perhaps less enthusiastic as Donald Trump was?
I don't think that Joe Biden will really be making the decision about that. Quite a few of the Congress and senators that I know have always said that they're really just dusting off something from 1871 and that there is no way that they're going to stop any kind of good trade relationship with the UK. See, what I want to say is don't give so much power, credit, or credence to Joe Biden. I mean, we really don't know how much of his brain is operating. We don't know if Obama is in his ear telling him what to do. And I think what is more important to look at is the fact that we have a terrible leadership in our military. And if anything, that has damaged the relationship. I mean, special relationship. I've been here 20 years and I've been asked about it. And, it's like, it's intangible. But if you think about what has made the relationship strong, it has been the military. It has been the MI6, CIA, those kinds of things in working together for the safety of something much bigger than the US and the UK. And that's what we've got to look to. If I were with the British military right now, I would be seriously worried about who's making the decisions there and how far down it goes.
Dr. Halper Hayes, how important to the relationship is the outcome of the next presidential election?
Okay, the next presidential election. So we're going to 2024?
Right, 3 years' time.
Okay. Right now, there is serious thought and evidence that devolution is going on right now in the United States. There is a very real possibility with the different audits, the forensic audits that are going on, that it's going to prove what we've known, which is that it was a stolen election. I think there is a very good chance of the military stepping in before we even look at 2024. And the military has all the receipts. They followed everything. They know where the crimes were committed.
You're being heckled there by a dog.
Came in for a dog. Sorry.
Is it a Republican, that dog, or a Democrat?
It's definitely Republican.
Yeah, I don't think you've got a special relationship with him by the sounds of it.
It's actually my neighbor's. It's my neighbor's dog.
Well, look, as he chews on your ankle, Dr. Halper Hayes, let me ask you, Professor Singh, what you think about this idea that the election was stolen. There were many court cases. It was all thrown out, the idea that somehow the result of the election lacked veracity. So it's been denied that the election was stolen. What's your view on the remarks there of Jan Halper Hayes?
Can I make a comment, please,
sure,
Professor,
go for it, Jan.
before you answer?
Go for it.
Okay, look, the media said, there were 60 different lawsuits and they've all been turned down and everything. Actually, one of them, Trump asked the Supreme Court not to hear it. The thing is that he knew that what we needed was the people to raise up and to make a difference. And that only once the legislators in each state really looked at it and did the forensic audits, that then we would know the truth. And that it had to happen. Trump could not have come out and said, look, I had the military follow everything. I've got all of the evidence. I've got the receipts, because he would have been accused of having a coup. But more importantly, if we find out that it was a stolen election, it is not to put Trump back in, but it is to restore election integrity in the United States, which has been sorely lacking.
Well, Jan Halper Hayes, you're entitled to your view. It's been challenged by many, but what's your view, Professor Singh? Do you think there's some evidence that the election was stolen?
No. Not at all. And it's unfortunate. And I think it's one of the difficulties that we're facing in terms of our relationship now, that there are certain elements in the American political class who are talking about the importance of democracy and at the same time seem to be undermining that at every opportunity. You know, we're almost into October now. We're almost 1 year away from the last election. Most mainstream Republicans have repudiated this nonsense. And for this to be carrying on really is one of the problems that we're facing, as you were saying quite rightly earlier, in terms of the broader Western alliance. You know, the United States' credibility is looking more and more shaky to its partners. And that's a worry not just for its partners, but for the US as well. Because sooner or later, those partners are going to start looking elsewhere. And frankly, the options are not good. They're not good for the UK. They're not good for other allies. But those partners are going to start hedging their bets soon. And the only winner in all of this is China.
Final thoughts, Laurie Laird.
Well, I had many thoughts, but just very briefly, Dr. Harper Hayes, you've mentioned on 2 occasions receipts that will prove, you seem to suggest will prove that the election was stolen. What are these receipts? I follow American politics really closely. This is the first time I've heard the word receipts. What are these receipts? Help me out here.
The receipts are basically the fact that the military followed all of the votes. They knew when foreign countries interfered with it. And I'd be more than happy to send you a couple of websites because this is very public in the States.
I just don't understand the use of the word receipts. Is it money changing?
Evidence. It's evidence.
Talking about a paper trail.
Too strong to use.
I'm sorry to divert the conversation, but I would be more than happy to see that.
Well, actually, what we could do on a future occasion, I'm actually very happy to invite both of you back and we can debate the veracity of that election result and we can have a look at whether it was or wasn't stolen. I'm really happy to revisit that conversation. Clearly, that's a big debate that will continue to rage stateside. So I'm happy to revisit that one, Laurie Laird. And I will definitely count you in, absolutely. But overall then, what's your sort of prognosis for the UK-US relationship going forward?
I think the US-UK relationship will bumble along as it has. And again, as I say, I don't think it's been a particularly fruitful or strong relationship. I think it's a relationship because we say it is. But I do want to make the point again that if the UK wants to make its mark, and look, Boris Johnson has spoken about nothing but global Britain. We are now free of the EU. We are global Britain. We are able to act on the world stage. Yet the UK can't act militarily on its own. And I would venture that where the UK needs to look is in its backyard to find military partners, not least France. There is lots written about the good relationship the French and the UK military have, despite the fact that the political relationship between the two nations is less than it could be. But we look at the UK and France often have common interest in what's happening in their near abroad, in areas like Afghanistan, in the Sahel, places that are more in their backyard that don't even get an interest of the politicians in the US.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.